Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Today I am going to be talking about perception, but I'm going to do it in a very roundabout way because it sounded more fun in overall. Um, Ultimately, a little bit of background, came across a thing a while ago with Hannah. I believe it was featured on IO9. It was I believe his name was Karhall. I could be absolutely butchering that name. I'll leave a link to his. I believe it was on his Tumblr or their Tumblr on that I came across this overall. But I'll leave a link to that in the description. But anyway, this guy had basically sat down with his mum, gone through all of the characters in Overwatch, which, great characters design to one extent or another. But he went through them all with his mother, who had never come across the game before, and got her impressions. And it was all rather amusing, some of the answers. However, as a result, this got me thinking, and between like my mother and Hannah's mother, in terms of like the numbers as parts of demographics, generally and so on. They're both nurses. They were both born within a few months of each other, so they're essentially the same age group. They're both white. They're both, they both live in affluent areas. Overall, as far as the demographics are concerned, the demographics that our mothers fit into, they're pretty much the same. Yeah, if you were looking at, for the most part, the largest groups that people are thrown into, you would find our mothers stood together in pretty much each one. And as a result, gave me an idea. It's not by any means really scientific, but I thought it'd be fun, and it highlights a thing. So what I did was I took a look at the questions that he had asked, or seemed to have asked. He didn't give a list or anything. And I came up with 7 questions that I would ask my mum, and that Hannah would ask her mum. And then I'll go through and compare their answers and see where the differences are and where the similarities are, because that's the point of this. And I'll sum everything up at the end in regards to what I actually wanted to get out of this and what's become apparent through doing it. But the questions that I asked were, the first one was, what would they name the character? What co-name would they give? The second one was just first glance impressions of the character. Third question was, where do you think they came from? What was their backstory? The fourth question was, which role would they play within the team that they're attached to? The fifth one was just looking at them. What were they gaining in terms of personality from this person? From this character. What did they think that they were like as a person? The sixth one was, why would you want them as an ally? The seventh was, why wouldn't you want them as an enemy? And as a result, I asked my mum. Hannah asked hers, and so I will go through them all now. For the sake of speed, though, because I don't want this to be an absolutely huge video, as I've already done enough of those this week in regards to the time that I'm recording. I've already done a fair number of large videos this week. I didn't really want to take up an awful lot of time just churning through every single little thing, because I don't feel I need to. But yeah, so we'll take a look at the first one then. The first one being Anna, and I'll stick a picture of each character up as we go. But with Anna, my mum initially thought that Anna was a young man, due to just how thin she was and how well her armor covers up her femininity, and as a result, she doesn't look the oldest, despite her actual age. Whilst Hannah's mum thought very much that she was female and looked armed, but also looked menacing, which is something that was interesting, as that wasn't an observation at all. My My mum felt that she was some kind of amphibious trooper, and so amphibious was the code name that was given, whilst Hannah's mother felt that she looked like someone that she had worked with in the past, and so whose name also happened to be Anna, and so that was the name that she gave, although spelt differently. Moving on, you've got a lot of agreement in regards to what her role is, where they're both saying that she's someone that damages, someone that fights, someone that kills. Completely, not what Anna does on a team in Overwatch. But then, looking at their origins again, my mother felt that she was maybe more of a tribal fighter, thanks to the tattoo on her face, whilst Hannah's mum felt that maybe she was from another planet, and that might be why she had the markings. But then my mum put much more of a focus on the kind of determination and the fact that Anna wouldn't be afraid to fight and force her way through to an objective, whilst Hannah's mother made more of a point of going, well, she's got a big gun, she's probably killing one person at a time, and should be quite focused. So again, that's maybe, picking up more on the sniper rifle angle. The next one that we looked through, because we went through them in alphabetical order, was Bastion. And so looking at my mum's answers first, she felt that due to his colour, she'd call him Sandy, that he was some kind of industrial robot, that he was more protective, gentle unless he had to protect something, and that he was kind of very usually a nice individual, usually quite pleasant and docile, unless he had to attack things, because in the picture that we show up here, he's playing with Ganymede, the bird that follows him around. But she very much picked up on the fact that he had a big gun on his back, and that he would probably sit and annoy the enemy, or kind of protect his friends by creating a bit of a roadblock. And so that was one impression, whilst the impression on the other side, on Hannah's mum's side, was that she felt his name was E54, because that's obviously what's emblazoned on his armouring there. Because he was a robot, though, he wouldn't have any personality at all, because he's just a machine. She felt he was some kind of support recon droid, and she felt that very much the reason why you wouldn't want to be his enemy was just because he could mass produce himself, which, again, I don't know how that would happen in an arena combat game so much, but that was her takeaway from Bastion. But she felt very much more that he was both supportive and recon, which I suppose is what you could say maybe that Anna is to a degree, due to the distance that she can keep from people. But that's where the differences in perceived role, I feel, are some of the more interesting things here. But anyway, moving on to the next one, D.Va. And my mum felt that she looked moody, that she was a spoilt brat, that she was Korean thanks to the markings on her mech, but that she came from a rich family, and so it wasn't a country-sponsored mech or anything like that. It was the fact that she was it had been bought for her. She got right that she was kind of front line and kind of got in the way, and that she would be both quite defensive in herself and just quite a moody teen girl, but that she would protect the rest of her team, but expect or need like something back for her to actually do it. But then, why would people want to be against her? Completely ignored the survivability angle and went very much more for the fact that she's just got big guns and a big mech. Looking at Hannah's mum's answers, though, we've got she called the girl. She separated out the girl and the mech, and she felt that they were two separate things in a larger sense. Whereby she called the girl Bluebell, due to her jumpsuit, and she called the robot or the mech Pink Tanky because reasons. And she felt that the armored vehicles very much like more of a mobility scooter for D.Va, and so she feeling that maybe she was weak, incapable, and being pouty and crossing her arms and not looking like she could protect herself very much. She felt that the mech was very much like some kind of mobility scooter, just to keep her going or to keep her protected and safe within it, which I guess is kind of true. But she felt that she wasn't very brave, and the robot was given to her more to stop her looking pretty and soft, more of an appearances thing. But she felt that they were, or the specifically, it was a case of the tank would go in, flank, kill people, clear up the mess from others, whilst you'd have the girl inside just cheering it on, which is interesting. But then she felt that the again, D.Va was a bit of a cow. Her words, not mine. But again, that the robot just didn't have, or the mech didn't have any emotive capacity, which is true. But then she felt that the only reason that people would want her on our team is because she's got the mech. And the reason why people wouldn't want her on the side is because the mech is pink, in the image anyway. Again, I don't think that so much plays into it, but hey, there you go. Moving on, we've got Genji, who my mum dubbed Armadillo due to his segmented armor, and likewise you had Hannah's mum pick out especially the shaping of his segments around his chest, suggesting that he had pecs. She went, there you go. My mum felt that he was maybe a support healer, someone that would run in, get quite close and kind of use his swords to keep things at bay whilst he healed someone, using more kind of strategic movement and being a kind of focal point for the team to gather around in close quarters to keep them alive, kind of like a Lucio with his passive heal. Whilst then you had Hannah's mum feeling he's potentially a robot, like in her words, like the mannequins from Doctor Who, and that again, picking up on the fact that he uses swords, suggesting that he had to be very close, and yeah, it was a case of the only reason that she saw for him not to, for people to not want to fight Genji, was simply that he was a robot, and so as a result, they don't know how intelligent he is or how capable he is, and he probably didn't get injured as easily. Which, again, a lot of differences in perception there, a lot of differences in rationalizing what this one character does. Okay, so moving on to Genji's brother Hanzo, you've got my mum feeling that he was some kind of a maker or artisan of some sort that had built his own equipment, that he was maybe some kind of eco-warrior or survivalist, but judging from the tattoo, she did say kind of maybe East European or Japanese, just from a mix of the shape of his face and the fact that she felt the tattoos were, the dragons and all that kind of thing were maybe that side of the planet more. She felt that he was a scout, which he kind of is, and that he, in terms of his motivations for being in the game, it would very much be a case of he was trying to seek help for whatever cause he was fighting for, whatever kind of eco-warrior or survivalist kind of cause he was a part of. Whilst on the other side, you've got Hannah's mum saying that he looked like a Dothraki, and that he was very scary, lots of intimidation, that he would, stab people in the back, that he had lots of grenades to throw. and he was probably a man of few words, which is kind of accurate, but was otherwise just up for going in and like hurting people, causing as much damage as possible, which is potentially less the case. But then we've got the next one. But then we've got Junkrat, and here you've got a lot of similarities in perception, where you've got mum who's my mum who's feeling that he's very unstable and dangerous, that he's potentially both unpredictable in an advantageous way to his team and a completely disadvantageous way for the enemy team. He's very mercurial, that potentially he would be able to swap sides. And then you've got Hannah's mum's perceptions, where she's feeling that he's crazy looking, but when she's saying that he's manic, she's also saying that he's a healer, he's supportive. She felt that the grenades and things hanging off him, and the satchel and other bits and pieces that he's got, are the capacity to carry around water, bandages, and other various supplies that would allow him to help other people. That he's very much the cavalry, sorry Tracer, and that he would be there to sustain people and keep them going, which is quite the opposite of what Junkrat does on a day-to-day basis. Then we've got Lucio rather, who's I don't know why I keep mispronouncing his name, but hey, whereby my mum felt he was very sporty, that he was young, that he was someone to kind of keep the peace and heal others around him, that he was humorous and allowed more of a morale boost, was a bit more of a kind of pacifist that wouldn't necessarily fight back, and as a result, the longer he didn't fight back, the more he would stay alive and help others, which potentially which the pacifist side of things isn't completely true, but the fact that he would be there, and the longer he stays alive, the more he can help just through passively being there, that's kind of accurate. Looking at the other side, with Hannah's mum, you've got her suggesting that he did look young, but that he was wearing fancy dress, or was as part of some futuristic kind of drama student or something like that. He was supportive and but kind of big-headed and overly confident. But again, he would cause more kind of dissent and divisiveness amongst the other team through kind of passive aggression, which I guess the passive angle is correct, but not so much the rest. But yeah, moving on to McCree, where my mum felt that he was a ranger, that he was a cowboy or a fairly obviously American-looking outlaw, that he was damaging, that he would be up for dirty fighting and kind of more getting in and punching people in the face, shooting them up as best as possible, which again, potentially true. And that the main reason that people wouldn't want him is that he was good at killing, he's good at just wiping people out, which again is kind of accurate. Whilst on the other side, Hannah's mum felt that his name, or that she would name him Pedro, and she felt that he looked Mexican, possibly thinking that his hat was more a sombrero of some description than the cowboy hat that he has. She felt that he would actually have some kind of mobility through the use of legitimately being a cowboy jumping on a horse, which would be interesting, I suppose, but not accurate. And that as a result, though, of his increased mobility, he would be a great positive for his team and a negative for an enemy team, just due to that speed, just due to that ability to charge in. And so there you have McCree. So moving on, then we've got May, who's my mum called Ariadne due to the fact that she was wearing silver. She felt that she was approachable, that she was some kind of academic and also Japanese. just from her appearance. She felt that she was protective and healer kind of role, kind of paladin-esque, where you can both keep yourself running with heavy armor or heavier armor and padding, and heal others, because she felt that the bulk was more her equipment and less her. And that she felt that the robot on her back was very much more a healing robot that could also hack and interfere with enemies. Whilst on the other side, Hannah's mum again goes back to giving her a nickname based on someone that her mum used to work with, and her appearing similar. She didn't quite understand what the hairpin that May has in her head, asking if it was a knitting needle. But again, she felt that she was a healer or some kind of medical person, and that she would be wandering around healing people, getting them back on their feet, and so on and so forth. Especially kind of filling in for Mercy's role with the resuscitation of people and using medical expertise to get them back up. Which, anyone who or at least the vast number of people who play against May probably more hate her for the fact that she freezes them on the spot and kills them than the fact that she's possibly a nice person as a personality. Okay, so next one is Mercy, and rather unsurprisingly, she's fairly easy to describe. Both my mum and Hannah's mum called her Angel. Although my mum was the one that my mum picked up the fact that she was Swiss, but didn't really focus on the fact that she had wings. She had more of a focus on the halo that she had on her head, thinking that she was probably a healer, but kind of possibly more like Thor, in the fact that it might be a zap of lightning to resuscitate someone, or kind of she would be the serene, calm space in a kind of eye of the storm kind of thing, where people would come to her, she would heal them, she would resuscitate them, but that she would also be able to maybe use mind control or hit enemies from a distance, to kind of allow that eye of the storm kind of thing, where she would crowd control enemies away so that her allies could come to her for healing. Whilst on Hannah's side of things, Hannah's mum's side of things, she focused more on the fact that she had wings, and that she was probably some kind of scout, and the fact that she was airborne was probably one of the more important things, more so than anything else. Which leads us on to Farah, and my mum felt that Farah looked a bit like a princess, especially with some of the gold elements on her armour. She felt that maybe she was more Native American. Neither of our mums picked up on the similar tattoo on Farah and Anna. But she felt that she was Native American, that she was very much more protective, very self-reliant, and that from the expression on her face, she felt that she was likable, but in a miserable kind of way. And so it was a case of she's very good at self-sustaining. She could hold a point, hold an objective, hold enemies off a downed ally, and stuff like that. Whilst then you had Hannah's mum, again going for a much more normal name, calling Farah Emma. And she went that, she has, that she would probably be some kind of art student that had designed her costume, or designed her equipment herself. And that she would very much flank round and kind of blow people away from behind. Not saying how she did that, but just that she would exterminate injured enemies that were trying to flee, or as her team drove over the top, she would come up the rear and take out any stragglers that had been missed. And that ultimately, just from her demeanour, that she was very much an indiscriminate killer. A lot of considering you've got a difference here in protection versus not even aggression, but kind of ruthless murdering. You've got a big difference here with Farah. So next one we've got is Reaper. My mum called him Mask. She picked up on the fact that he was maybe at one point a Marine. It's from the underlay that he's wearing, the chest plate and the grenades, I think they are, or panel across the top of his chest. She felt that that was very kind of Navy SEALs, Marine kind of thing. She again felt that he was very cunning and like zealous in what he was doing, and so as a result, he was just an all-out kind of fanatical killer, just bent on harming people because was a Marine now gone bad. And as a result, the advantage and disadvantage was simply if he's on their team, couldn't kill them, wouldn't kill them. It would be counterproductive. If he was on the other team, though, then he'd be killing all of them. Whilst Hannah's mum felt that she called him grey, she felt that he was a robot instead, and that he was very much maybe a science, a kind of a university science project gone wrong, and that he was a robot and as a result couldn't have any personality. And that he was one of the upfronts, or one of the either at the front or at the back, to kind of provide cover for those people either in the middle or the other allies of his that were moving around, feeling he was very much more a protective individual than not. And so again, there you've got a distinction between the focus on the fact that he doesn't need to have a face just to be human, but he's got a background and he's obviously dressed in such an edgy fashion because he's out to get people. Whilst again on the other side you've got this perception of if they don't have a face, then that means that they must to one extent or another be artificial, and that's something to seemingly be afraid of, but also that it can't carry any of its own personality traits or any of its own more thought out functions there, which I find interesting as a separation between the two. But moving on, we've got Reinhardt. My mum felt that he was kind of very much like Thor, very muscular, that he was his helmet suggested a crown and that maybe he was royalty, kind of a defender of his kingdom or of his home kind of thing. He was very stalwart, and with the big armour he was quite hard to kill, and that would be frustrating for people. Whilst Hannah's mother felt that again he was a robot because he doesn't have a face, that she called him scrap because he was built out of scrap metal, and that as a result he didn't have a personality, but he did carry a big drill, seemingly focusing on the bottom tip of his rocket hammer as opposed to the whole thing. And he was specifically a kind of line breaker, moving in, using his drill to just punch holes through things or through people, possibly punch holes through scenery, so that he could get people through walls. And as a result, that it would be a case of if he was on a team with allies, his allies would appreciate him for getting in, making exits where there weren't any before, things like that. Whilst if you had another team in opposition that didn't have access to that, they would be quite pissed off at the fact that you would have people potentially just punching through walls and coming in and wiping them out. Moving on to Roadhog, we've got Hannah's mum calling him Kurt, my mum calling him Swine. Both of them kind of picked up on the pig thing to an extent. Both of them saying that ultimately one of the biggest things that was wrong with him, that he was either an asset or a disadvantage to either his team or the enemy team, was basically just that he smelled bad, and that looking at him he smelled bad, and that he was intimidating and mean, but ultimately what it comes down to is that he smelled bad. And as a result, it was a case of, though Hannah's mum also attaching to that he would probably be submissive to anyone that feeds him due to his size, which, well, there you go. But then in terms of background, Hannah's mum felt that he had maybe been raised as part of some kind of human battery farm experiment, which is why he looks so rough. The hills have eyes kind of out in the middle of nowhere environment, but with some kind of oversight to build him into a fighter. Whilst my mother felt that he was maybe Turkish or Arabian, or from some kind of, again, desert environment, whereby he was something more of an outcast, and that would that was how he had become what he was. So then we've got Soldier 76. Mum felt that he looked like Clint Eastwood in a mask, and so called him Clint. Hannah's mum felt that he was just called Johnny. No one knows why. There was no reason given. My mum again picked up on the fact that he was probably a Marine or some kind of mercenary, that he would take one side or the other, and that he was good in particular using whatever methods to work his way through a team, and he would be able to find their weak spots and target them, which, you know, kind of plays into his ultimate, I guess. But then on the other side, Hannah's mum felt that he was very much just wearing a gas mask. He was from some kind of clay pigeon or shooting community, and that he was some kind of fighter that would use chemical grenades and shoot very accurately as a result of his experience clay pigeon shooting. Yeah. So again, though, you're getting a lot of focus on how accurate he is from just the design being picked up. Okay, so then we've got Symmetra, and so my mum felt that she was some kind of visionary or religious leader. She called her Topaz due to what she was wearing. She felt that maybe she was from Peru or some kind of South American country. She felt that she was a healer, and that she would use her abilities to predict the movements of and monitor allies. You know, maybe using something like wall hacks was kind of what I think she was getting at. But that the problem and the thing with her would be that she didn't have a disadvantage to the other team, really. If my mum felt that if they found her, that because she wasn't wearing an awful lot in the way of armor, it would be really easy to kill her, and as a result, people probably wouldn't mind fighting her so much, even though she gave her team an advantage. Whilst Hannah's mum, she felt that she was kind of some kind of beautician or performing artist, that she may very well be a healer, but ultimately that she just made people made some people feel good and others people not from whatever she could do. She didn't have an awful lot of idea around Symmetra, and she felt that potentially even the little light cradle that she's got in the picture there was very much more maybe something for just beautifying herself. Then we've got Torbjorn, my mother calling him Red Dwarf, suggesting that he's actually a dwarf, or that he's possibly lost his legs or been damaged during combat in some way. He's very much a fighter, that he would kind of get really stuck in. Even if he's not necessarily the tankiest of people, he would have the capacity to get really into the middle of a fight and kind of push his way through. Whilst then you've got Hannah's mum saying that he's probably more of a troll. He looks like a Smurf. Maybe he looks a little bit Scandinavian, but she did pick up on the fact that he was probably some kind of forge worker or foundryman, and that he would use his big kind of forge hand to remove fences or to repair equipment and weapons, and that he would probably be there to bolster his allies by preventing things like hacking, damage of weapons, damage of armor, and things like that, and helping them like fix their stuff, which, you know, he does throw packs of armor out. Okay, so moving on to Tracer, my mum picked up that she was from the UK, and that she was possibly more of a mechanic. Looking at her jacket and looking at the things that she had on her arms, she felt that maybe she was from within the RAF, and as a result would be some kind of experimental airborne scout that would would have come from the mechanical side of things, designed her own equipment, and then used it as a form of kind of airborne kind of scouting and focused attack kind of method, and that she would be very capable and versatile of keeping, in regards to keeping herself safe and achieving objectives. Whilst Hannah's mother felt that she probably didn't have a lot of place on the battlefield, that she looked like a model, that she was some kind of soft creative, and that as a result of that, the ability she had may be more in the way of invisibility or distraction, just to keep people away from her, because otherwise, she wouldn't be particularly capable, but also people wouldn't know how capable she actually was, and therefore would be easy pickings. So you've got an interesting split between the perception of her being capable and particularly versatile potentially, and otherwise the view of her being fairly useless, that she's not meant to be there, that she doesn't really have a proper role. Okay, and then we've got Widowmaker, and in regards to my mum, she felt that she would call her Rose due to the pink that she was wearing. She felt that maybe she was an alien or a mutant or some kind of genetic super soldier because she's blue, which again, you're kind of right on that. And then, the marksman sniper angle was very much apparent to my mother due to the weapon being wielded. But Hannah's mum, very much focused on the fact that she wasn't human, that she had a weird skeleton, and most prominently that she didn't have any nipples showing through her outfit, that she would come from some kind of cold planet, and as a result on Earth would be extremely warm, hence the lack of clothes and the blue skin, that she did have a big gun, and that just from her expression that she was quite secretive, but that she would be much more of a kind of in the middle of a fight, standing kind of mid-range, fulfilling a kind of Soldier 76 kind of role, just spraying bullets in from the mid-range. Okay, and then we've got Winston, which my mother said would be called Rory because he's a gorilla. I don't entirely get the equation, but there you go. And Hannah's mum felt that he just looked grumpy, and as a result, that was his name. My mum picked up on the jetpack early on. It was one of the first things she noticed. Hannah's mum picked it up a little while later, but my mum felt that he was maybe there to look after animals and to protect people and so on and so forth. She did pick up on the fact that he's a scientist and not a monkey, because he has glasses and seemed quite even-tempered, even if he looks a little angry. But the main reasons why he would be an asset were because he was quite good at control and controlling himself, he'd have to. But why he would be a terrible opponent was because he's a fucking gorilla. Whilst then you've got Hannah's mum feeling that he came from Africa and that he's been brainwashed into fighting somehow. He's just been turned into some kind of animal weapon, that he would use his jetpack to fly up and throw missiles or other forms of projectile explosive or projectile down at enemies, and that would be a way of deterring enemies from coming near him and his friends. Then we've just got two left. We've got Zarya, who my mum felt that was very motherly looking, that she was a protector. She felt that she was American just due to the haircut and the tribal tattoos and how kind of bulky she was. She felt she was much more American than not. But she felt that she was protective, and that she would be all about keeping other people safe and putting up barriers and so on and so forth, with her thick armor and actual barriers of some sort. I think my mum was thinking more ballistic shields than the force fields that Zarya actually uses, but that was what she picked up. Then you've got Hannah's mum, who felt that she was very much more some kind of liberal individual who was both dominant in kind of persona and in presence, but was very submissive. She felt that the big collar on her armored chest was potentially something that would have her linked into or controlled by, and that she felt that Zarya herself was maybe more liberal thanks to her hair and whatever else, and her otherwise her appearance, and that she was maybe very much more into the musical kind of rock and roll kind of thing, and that she would be some kind of morale booster or some kind of person to hold the team together, and as a result kind of spread damage out and prevent people from getting taken down. And then last off, we've got Zenyatta, where my mother felt again was from somewhere in East Asia, that he was a very spiritual healer, that he looked like a monk but also looked like a banana because of the yellow he was wearing to one degree or another, and that he keeps out of his way and does his job, but that he would also be a negative to the opposing team because he would use some form of psychic attack, or maybe he would use some kind of kung fu esque kind of martial arts to harm anyone that got near him, because she could see his balls and realised that the balls were somehow important, but otherwise he didn't seem to have a weapon, and so she felt maybe he was more hand-to-hand whilst also healing people. Whilst Hannah's mum felt that he looked a little bit like Donald the Duck as a result of the shape of his head, that whilst he looked very zen, and that he may very well to one extent or another be some form of spiritual healer, again by looking as if he was a monk, that maybe he would have some kind of personality because it had been granted to him through someone modifying his software, otherwise he probably didn't have any kind of personality, and that he would provide an awful lot in the way of positive benefits to people around him, and that the other enemy would dislike him purely because he would have some kind of omnipotent or omnipresent capacity to heal people. Then the last couple of things that we asked our mums were just who were their favourites and who weren't. My mum said that she very much liked Symmetra the most because she seemed capable to one degree or another just in her demeanour, and she would probably have a lot more guts going into combat wearing just a dress instead of having the various forms of armour that other characters did. And she didn't like Roadhog because he looked horrible. Fair enough. Whilst Hannah's mum liked the pink tanky D.Va mech, but didn't like D.Va herself. So there you go. And then she didn't like Junkrat because he looked like a psycho, which again, fair enough. So now that I've gone through all of those though, the interesting things to note are that my mother with her perceptions and things did differ quite substantially in a lot of different places from Hannah's mother, even on things that they kind of got the same, like picking up that Mercy, for example, looked like an angel. They both took it in different ways as to what that would mean. You know, Winston having a jump pack on his back was noted by both of them, but taken in different ways. One seeing it as more of a capacity to move around and to enhance his abilities to get into a place to protect people, and the other looking at it as a way for him to get above and damage people as if he was Farah. And as a result, the thing that I want to point out overall is that whilst these two cases, you know, as said at the beginning, they look very similar from a demographic standpoint, looking in and down on them, as just numbers as part of the greater population. Each one has their very different perceptions, even when they basically notice something that's the same. Even when they agree on something, they still have their different takes on it. And so with the way that perception works, and with it being so personal, it's a really interesting kind of thing to do this, just because it demonstrates, in a very small way granted, but it demonstrates that every single person is different, no matter how similar you are, no matter how much you agree on certain things, no matter what your perceptions. You know, with my mum, she was taking things in a bit more context. She was trying to get into what was being said and done, and trying to pick up clues. You know, that's one of the reasons why my mum, from what I understand, picked up the fact that Mercy was from Switzerland. Whilst then you've got Hannah's mother, who draws an awful lot more on her personal background, and this person looks like someone I used to work with, and so that's what I'm going to call them. And so it's an important thing to realise how different and how distinct people's perceptions of things can be, I feel, because you've got a huge number of people on this planet, and trying to talk with and understand everybody when no one is willing to appreciate the fact that perspectives differ, and that people are having different conversations and looking at different things and so on and so forth, that can be really difficult. It can slow everything down so much. We've seen this in politics so much recently. This is a just more fun way to look at it and highlight it, I feel. And so, the thing that I would like to take away from just doing this, other than the fact that it was just funny to do, is that you need to have that appreciation. You need to, ask the questions to appreciate someone else's point of view, to have a greater awareness of what that person is saying, why they're saying it, and so on and so forth, so that then you can approach them and have the discussion. But yeah, that's kind of all I had to say, and it was just a thing that perspective, perception, the differences in people, they make up such a huge part of our world and the way we interact with each other. And so taking a step back, asking questions, allowing people to be curious, not shutting down the conversation just because someone is asking questions that might at some points be quite hard. I mean, both Hannah's mum and mine, towards the end, were very much going, oh god, these questions are so hard, because they were having to look into things, they were having to have the conversation, they were having to try and analyse what they were saying and what they were looking at. And that's something that lots of people don't do on a regular basis. Lots of people don't take that step back and take a look at what's in front of them, and not just make their judgments on it, but then also analyse their judgments and work out why they're saying these things. If you're in that situation that's uncomfortable and you're trying to work out why, and you don't really want to work out why, it's worth taking the time to do it. It's worth taking the time to just stop and try and work out why you are doing a thing, because potentially you're doing a thing for no reason and you're wasting time. You're wasting time, you're wasting effort, you're wasting resources, and there are better ways to do it. So yeah, tell me what you guys think. Was this entertaining? Would you do this with your relatives to see what they thought, or something similar? Hannah said that maybe we should do another one with Paladins, considering Paladins is a game that we've actually been playing on here every so often. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you like the idea of us doing some more of these with characters from different games and things, between our parents or between whoever, then drop us a like, just to let us know that this is a thing that you would like to see more of, just because it's fun. But otherwise, as said, appreciate other people's perspectives, ask the questions, be curious, but don't shut down those conversations. They're important. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Please drop me a subscribe, because that way you'll be able to see more and and interact more with when I'm doing things like this. Maybe I'll be looking for some help from you guys in the future, as I do more of these little fact-finding things to make a point. But otherwise, I will see you tomorrow in the next video. Take care.